In the gym and in the car. With our advice you could go far. We fuck things up and we make mistakes. And talk about our sexy dates. We host events and go to clubs. But most of all we're still in love. It's getting hard for this to rhyme. Just as well, 'cause it's bed hopping time.
Hello and welcome to the Bed Hoppers podcast. My name's Mr. H.
I'm Mrs. H.
Guess what, folks? She's still here. She's still kicking. I want to say a huge, huge thank you to everyone who sent their well wishes, who wrote in. It makes it sound like a Saturday morning TV show. But everyone who sent us an email, dropped us a message on social media to say, get well soon, Mrs. H. We adore you. Please get better. And it's been really, really lovely.
I'm still grumbling.
You're still grumbling. Well, yes. I mean,
doesn't change.
That hasn't changed. Ultimately, it is still really, really hot in the UK.
And that's why I'm complaining.
Well, yeah, that's one of the reasons that you're complaining. To be fair, your day pretty much involves you getting up, having some breakfast, and then sitting in our bedroom for the entire day because it's got aircon.
Yeah.
Waiting for me to finish work, coming downstairs for your dinner, and then probably going back upstairs to watch more TV
you
afterwards.
made me sound like a teenager. Bring your tray down.
It's not, you've not quite descended or ascended to that level, but it's close, I think.
I've been getting out and doing little walks as well.
You did little walks.
It's too hot.
It is very, very hot. There was a Pokemon day. You did that.
Yeah.
You did lots of steps for that, which is good.
I did some steps, yeah.
And I think that's really sort of good because it's showing that you're starting to get a little bit stronger, a little bit more comfortable with where you are.
Yeah.
And things are starting to head in the right direction.
And I'm adjusting to some new meds.
Yeah.
But that's okay.
That's fine. That's good. I don't have to deal with it other than you sort of
complaining.
Yeah. That's the main thing. I'm here to take the complaints and provide you with food and drink and just check that you're okay.
So nothing's really changed there.
No, it's just pretty much the standard
Isn't that
thing.
what you normally do?
Yeah, it is pretty much that. But you're going back to work at some point soon.
Yeah.
And I think we're sort of gearing up for that.
Yeah. I want to go back because I want to start using my brain again.
Plus, it's really hard for me to have a wank while you're upstairs.
Is it?
Yeah, it's so distracting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So many wasted opportunities. So many times that when I could have been wanking.
Does it feel weird while I'm in the house?
Does a bit.
Yeah.
I think it's a bit strange having a wank when someone else is in
someone's actually in the house.
Okay, when you're like a teenager or whatever, or you've got like roommates and you're in your own room and you're locked in, you're like, okay, that's one thing. Or your parents are like gone to bed, whatever it might have been, right? But when your partner's in the house at the same time, kind of feels like you just want to do some sex. Like it feels like a thing that you should be asking. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe it's just us. I know lots of people don't feel that way, but I know people that occasionally share a toothbrush. So, I mean, some people are psychotic, frankly.
I've been sharing your toothbrush with a dog for ages.
Have you? That would explain the delightful flavour. Anyways, we've got a couple of topics to talk about today.
Yes.
So recently there was a story that went out on BBC that was all about fab swingers. And we thought it would be a good opportunity to talk about that and sort of swinging in the media. And we also went and saw The Invite.
Oh, with Seth Rogen and Penelope Cruz. And someone else whose name eludes me now.
Oh.
Ed Norton.
Yes, not Graham Norton.
No, Ed Norton. So quite a mainstream film, really.
Yeah, we've made it to the cinema a couple of times recently.
Yeah, because it's cold.
It is air conditioned. We saw the He-Man film. That was really good. Enjoyed that actually. Yeah, we got Spider-Man booked. Very excited to see that. Yeah, Supergirl. So those Supergirl really irritated me.
It did? Why?
I thought the film was fine. The film was like quite throwaway, disposable superhero nonsense. Nice character, Jason Mimosa, whichever one you prefer to call him at this particular point. All that stuff was really good. It had some good songs in it. It was that the cinema was slightly out of focus.
Oh, it did really annoy you, didn't it?
It was
I didn't notice it at all.
To me, it was like watching a 3D film without the glasses on.
So it's like blur around the edges.
Slight blur around the edges. And I know that with my glasses, my eyesight is really good. And I noticed that quite...
So that wasn't like a director's choice then?
No, the director didn't choose deliberately to make the film fucking blurry.
It wasn't that bad.
I did scurry out to complain, but I think they didn't really know or know what to do or take my things seriously. So anyway, that was my complaint about Supergirl. The film itself was perfectly serviceable and fun. Yeah. Not as good as He-Man though, which I did enjoy, and the Masters of the Universe. Anyway, moving swiftly back to the thing. So we thought we'd talk about the thing that was on the BBC, and then talk a little bit about the invite because, swinging in the media doesn't happen that often, particularly as one is quite a difficult conversation, I suppose, or quite a difficult view of the lifestyle and fab and all this kind of thing. And the other one was sort of almost a not awful version of swinging in the media.
Yeah. And it was quite funny as well.
Yeah. So let's start with this BBC thing. So this has been all over the press, all over the place. And if you don't know about it, basically there's been a podcast or a series of podcasts about this woman who went through quite an ordeal.
And she publicly went out with her name, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. So, the headline is really, and I'll read it to you, I won't read too much, but when Ruth O'Grady reluctantly joined a swinging website, having been persuaded by her husband, she says she told him she would never have sex in a car with a stranger. However, within months, she was doing exactly that and filming it to send him. She said she had sex with strangers more than 100 times through the website over an 18-month period. Ruth says she is traumatized and continues to suffer flashbacks. So it's quite we've both listened to the podcast, and I'd recommend...
They're only short episodes, like half an hour each.
Yeah, they're not that, they don't put in a full hour like we try
There's
and
only
offer.
6 episodes, I think.
Something like that. And if you look up BBC Fab Swingers or something, you'll find it, or Ruth O'Grady. And I listened to this thing, and basically it talks about how this woman was in a very difficult relationship with this partner. And he sort of essentially, it seems like they wanted to go and explore different things, and she felt that she was being coerced into it.
Yes.
However, when they interview the woman, it very much sort of suggests that she was giving consent to people at the time. She was telling her husband no, but when she was meeting the people, she was saying, yes, I'm fine with it. But later on, or she felt that she couldn't say no.
She was saying yes to keep him quiet
happy
and keep him happy.
So it's a very coercive, very abusive relationship. But the interesting thing is that the BBC and the interviewer have called out very particularly Fab Swingers as the site that has enabled this. And it's quite a damning report for Fab. And I think, I kind of went in with the view that, there's probably some stuff that Fab could be doing better, but I didn't quite know how it was going to all pan out. Now, she does say, and spoiler alert here, because we're going to spoil a bit of this podcast, quite a lot of it, while we talk about it, that she did leave the abusive relationship. At one point, she just packs her bags and disappears and doesn't ever reply to him again.
Yeah, her Black Mirror moment.
Yeah, she just goes. She basically, she says that after 18 months of this going on with her being forced to go dogging, going to swinging clubs, meeting people, having men around and all this kind of stuff, and, experiencing these 100+ men. She was talking to her partner about Black Mirror. Yeah. And the first episode, which is quite a horrific episode, the pig one, quite a famous episode. And he sort of turns around and said, I thought it was really funny. And that moment in her, the fact that he found this very traumatic pain of other people and other people's suffering to be funny.
Coercive,
yeah. Absolutely triggers her into realizing that she is herself in a bad situation, in a bad relationship, and decides to literally pack her bags and go. So she has got out of that, albeit with a lot of scars, but is now safe. And I think that's really important to say. And it made me think, actually, how safe is Fab Swingers? And I think that's my first question to you, wife. That's my first thought. Is it a safe site? Because if you're thinking about joining the lifestyle, right, you're probably, and you're in the UK, you're probably going to look up, what is the biggest what's the best site or whatever. And the biggest site is, sadly, Fab Swingers.
Yeah. So what I found interesting was actually listening all the way to the last episode. It's really only in the last episode, I think, that there's some discussion around, and it's Ruth O'Grady that specifically says, well, if it wasn't Fab, it'd be another site that, would kind of produce the same kind of ignorance around the safety. So she actually does say, if it wasn't Fab, it would be something else. So you could look at that with the kind of interpretation that it's not necessarily Fab that has kind of propelled this into the abusive relationship, but it would be anything. And actually it's the behaviour of her ex that's more been the catalyst. It's just that Fab was a platform with which it exposed, I think, maybe his difficult behaviours.
I think whilst Fab, I don't think you can hold Fab directly responsible for this. I think you're right. It absolutely stems from the ex and her inability through whatever reason to say no and to escape that life. Now, I think the trouble with Fab is that it is absolutely the Wild West.
Yeah.
There isn't really any safety features or anything in there that's really designed to help people. There is a lot of community because it has a lot of forums, but pretty much anyone can rock up.
Yeah.
There's not much security on the site. Anyone can pretty much say anything and it'll be around for a while before the admins eventually take it down. And I think you only have to go on there and go, hey, we're looking for a single guy tonight. And even just by saying that out the window, like, there's going to be 32 messages on our Fab account of people like asking when, how, and can they spunk on your tits immediately. So I think Fab doesn't really present itself in a great way. And it also doesn't do a lot visually to sort of make things more secure. Because anyone can turn up. There's no validation. There's no verification. There is verification for people that you've met. So if you're a couple and you're going on there for the first time, you can do some things that may help your experience. So if you're not into single guys, you can just block them. And that will help sort out a lot of the traffic that goes along with it. But you can also look for people that have lots of verifications. So people that have actually met other people and are confirming that they've met them and seen them and whose pictures look like they look like.
And what the podcast also doesn't frame in there is the fact that there are filters you can apply to Fab which will make your experience on there a little safer because you can block out certain things. You can also block users. There are reporting facilities within that. Now, how good they are, I can't really say they're amazing, but you can filter things out if you really wanted to avoid certain things.
Agreed, but I think other sites like Swing Hub, and I'm not necessarily saying that as an advocate for other sites, probably have more security and safety features about recognising people are real.
I would agree.
And filtering out some of the fake accounts, which does eliminate some of the danger. And also probably work a lot harder to block people that are problematic and get rid of them. Whereas with Fab, if your account gets deleted, who gives a fuck? You can be back there in 8 seconds and have a brand new account and no one would be any the wiser. Whereas I think certain other sites have a bit more security features and measures in place. Now, that wouldn't have necessarily helped someone that was going through an abusive relationship.
Right. And I think for new people to the scene, new people encountering Fab for the first time, actually it could well feel like a very predatory place. If you're
It is a bit.
Yeah, I think it probably is. But more so if you're very new and you don't really know what you're doing and how to navigate some of these things, it could probably feel quite terrifying.
Yeah, I think what I'd suggest if you are going to use Fab, I would definitely go on there and create a proper account. So the more information you put on there about yourself, not like your social security number or anything like that, but like what you're looking for, that will help guide some of the messages. Block the people that you don't want. So you can cut some of that out automatically. Look for verifications because this is an indication that someone's met someone and they've interacted with someone. And just be really, really careful about what you share. Understand that if you post it onto Fab, if you post a picture, that is out there in the whole world and anyone can see it and anyone can grab a copy of it.
I was going to say, can you screenshot on Fab?
I think you can, yeah. I think you can literally copy and paste pictures, like copy a picture off it and put it in your own photo collection. So it is not a secure site. So be mindful of that as you go along. Now, the reason I say you might want to set up a Fab account, because you might be listening to this and thinking, fuck that, why would I go there? Well, actually, it has the biggest number of users. And I think as a result, you have to do the biggest amount of shuffling through to find the great people, but there is a greater chance of you finding people on those sites. Now, other sites like Swing Hub and Spicy Match and some others are gaining some level of popularity, but I don't think anyone has really eclipsed what's been available on Fab. And as a result, that's where you've got to go to as default, or do what a lot of people do and have an account on Fab and an account on Swing Hub. So you cover the two big ones.
Yeah.
And then anything else you do is a bonus.
Yeah.
But Fab, you don't even have to pay for. You can
No,
have a
you can have
free
a free
account.
one and just, have minimal kind of interactions on there, because you can't do a lot for the free, can you? But you can
Oh, you
exchange
can.
messages.
We've lived on a free
That's true.
fab site for, I've not paid my £5 or whatever it is for 90 days for a long time.
Yeah.
And actually, because we're not really out there looking massively at the moment, particularly with you being poorly and stuff, I think we've lived with the free account thing quite easily.
But do you think putting things behind that paywall then would deter, the less desirable characters out there then?
I think that the fab paywall is so low, it doesn't...
$5.
It is. It's like a $5 for 90 days. And I don't think that's enough of a hoop to jump through to ensure that you're safe. And I guess that the opposite end of that, right, is killing kittens, where there's like applications and all sorts of nonsense that you go through, and there's procedures in terms of how you can talk to people, who talks to whom, all that sort of stuff. I think that's far too much down the other end of the spectrum, whereas I think fab is very much the bottom of the barrel in terms of coming in and being able to chat to people and creating accounts with, and you can do, you could just AI an image probably and set up a thing without much. All you have to do is hold up a picture with
the date
or whatever on it and username, and you could probably, if you were clever or even not that clever, falsify that without too much difficulty. I wouldn't recommend that you do it, but I imagine it's not a massive leap for people to do that. I think the other thing is that actually if you are on Fab and you kind of want to start meeting people, that you go to organised events rather than meeting people just randomly off the web, at least until you find your footing, because that will give you the sort of a little bit of savvy and also give you a little bit of that opportunity to talk to people about the real experiences that you might have there.
So in the case of Ruth O'Grady, had it not been Fab, had her ex decided to pursue these meets via a different site, I still think the end result would be the same though.
I think it would have been...
From listening to the whole series.
So I think what some of the other sites do is cut down on, at least from my experience, some of the extreme thirst, particularly from a single guy angle. There's less of that. Although granted, we're not ever looking for that, so it doesn't really pop up in our faces. But I think something like Swing Hub or whatever, you don't tend to get that many messages from just single guys doing the hey thing, right?
Yeah.
So I would suggest that it would have been a lot harder for them to find and make those connections through that way. Equally, any old site would have done.
Yeah.
Like you could have gone on any of the sort of swipe left, swipe right, Tinder, Grinders, whatever.
Hinged or,
any of those sort of things, and they probably would have enabled the exact same thing. Or they'd have gone on to classified ads, And I think the big problem is that this is a problematic relationship that's being driven by someone who doesn't really give a shit about their partner.
Yeah, and I think that's the overwhelming consensus I got from the very tragic story of Ruth O'Grady. I'm not diminishing her experience at all. I think it was really, really sad. But I did get the very strong impression, and granted there's two sides and we've only heard hers, that these behaviours would have been compounded by any ability for him to find some kind of platform for these desires to take place.
Yeah.
And it was more the relationship, as you say, that was problematic.
I think what I found particularly troubling was that there were two elements to this. One, she said, when it came to consent, that she was saying yes, that she was interested and happy to proceed. And then there was also an interview with a single guy.
There was Martin, the single guy.
And one of the things that he said, yes, he has been in experiences where he has felt that the woman does not want to proceed. And in some cases, and you may need to correct me if I'm wrong, he proceeded anyway. Even though the woman had said yes, he got the impression that she didn't want to. And in another case, he didn't proceed.
Correct. He didn't.
He mostly didn't proceed, according to him, I think, was because he wouldn't have gotten hard, which was like a worrying statement. Like he could have looked like a bit of a hero and a bit of a ledge, but no, it was like, well, I wouldn't have proceeded because I just wouldn't have got hard with that. I'm like, why
there was that, but he did also go on to say that I think one of those encounters was in like an orgy situation. Yeah. And so I think his statement was around the fact that it was going to happen anyway with all the other people who were there. And he did rubber up, but then decided not to proceed.
And I think, he certainly sounded by the end of his little interview segment that he was very upset and living with that regret was something that was absolutely going to be on his mind till his end of days, I think was something like that he said. I do find that the idea, I appreciate that consent is retractable at any time.
Yeah.
But I think you have to be careful with it because, we all know that no means no, and we all want given enthusiastic consent. Now we know that people can be nervous, and we've encountered people that still want to proceed, and they still see, but they are also emotionally troubled by what they're doing. They're excited, but also nervous, and I suspect it is very difficult to tell whether someone is being nervous or whether they genuinely don't want to do it, and they're just saying yes to either appease their partner or to get it over and done with, to just get through it, to see how they feel.
Yeah. And I think as I was listening to the series, I think my overwhelming question I kept coming back to was, well, what did they expect Fab to do? I think maybe to safeguard more. Yes, there's obvious things he can do around, locking down things and making things less accessible to predatory people. But ultimately, she gave consent and messaged these individuals herself on many occasions and admitted that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that kind of accountability does to some extent rest with the individual. So it made me just think, what did you want Fab to do differently, I think? Or I kept asking myself that question, because you don't know going into any situation if they're, nodding their head, but inside they're shaking their head. You don't necessarily know that unless you see some very clear physical red flags.
I think from Fab's perspective, I think they could have more features which are designed to help people that need that support. Like a get out of jail, I don't want to do this meet type, or access to phone lines that can help people.
Yeah.
I don't think they necessarily provide the phone lines themselves, but they could make it available and be
Signpost
hey,
them.
do you feel like you're being pressured into doing something you don't want to do?
Here's where you can go for
Here's
some
where you can
help.
go for some help.
Right.
I think a basic minimum, that's and having had a little bit of a look at the homepage and stuff, there wasn't a massive amount of that stuff there. Although it's hard to navigate Fab because it does look like it was made in 1993.
It's very
So I think there is
dated,
there is a due diligence around providing the support and perhaps having a function that can go, right, I'm sorry, I don't feel comfortable type alert where you can shut your account down or you can lock it or whatever it might be. That might be a good feature to have if it doesn't already exist. I think there is some reminders and some content about consent, and that consent should be given enthusiastically, and that you should be looking for that, and that you should check in with people regularly. But as an individual, you have a due diligence to say yes or no. Now, it's really challenging when you're in a coercive relationship and an abusive relationship, that if you think that this is going to make your partner happy, or if you think that this will get you through the next day or two or whatever, then it's going to be really, really hard for you to do that.
Yeah. And you shouldn't be having a meet to avoid an argument.
No, you shouldn't. But I think the challenging bit is if you get to the point where you're like, oh, I don't want to do this, then I think you kind of have to be brave and take that step. And it's so easy for me to say that because A, I'm a privileged middle-aged white man.
And secondly, you feel comfortable saying no to things.
Yes.
And you're not in a coercive relationship.
No, and I think that's the challenge. Without living that experience, I don't know how incredibly difficult or dangerous it is to say no. But putting myself in the situation where, say, we meet up with a couple and it's all going well and everyone's like, yeah, let's do the sex thing, it's going to be great. And I get a sense of that, if that person is saying, yes, that's all fine, I've checked. Do you know what I mean? I've asked and that all seems like it's all okay. But if I get a sense of they're not interested, obviously my due diligence is to go, whoa, there's something up. We probably need to sort this out.
Yeah.
And we've been in situations before, I remember if you go all the way back to Special Brew, right? We talked about this. I think we turned up in that environment, perhaps foolishly. We didn't have the advice that we're giving now. We went to someone's house.
Which you probably should never do on a first meet.
No, did it randomly. And then, you got drunk and all this sort of stuff. But it was really, really clear that woman was in a difficult, abusive relationship.
Yes, correct.
So we spent time talking to that person and following up to ensure that they weren't in danger. But there was no fucking way on earth that I was going to interact with that person who was even though it wasn't said until the end, that I would have proceeded with anything because it didn't feel comfortable to me.
We both knew that.
Yeah.
So we were both very adept at spotting that. The other thing I think that one of the views I took away from this podcast series was they applied for a freedom of information thing, didn't they?
Oh yeah.
Towards when when Ruth O'Grady handed over all of the evidence, all the WhatsApp chats and what have you, to the podcast producers at the BBC, they then went ahead and requested freedom of information from all the police files and various victim support groups and what have you. And I think what they were trying to get at was not so much Fab specifically as a platform, but how many times has swinging been the catalyst for, you know, people to reach out to police and victim support sort of channels because they think swinging is the reason why they're in the trouble they're in. And I think it was something like 39 out of 41 police constituent areas that said yes, swinging specifically has been mentioned many times in these freedom of information things, but we didn't say what they were.
No, and that sometimes could be that's what's triggered it. That could be mentioned that that's what that person was doing, or that was the site on which they met someone. It could be any number of things. It's not necessarily saying that the whole thing was bad, but it did paint a really difficult picture. And it was at that point where I was a little bit annoyed and frustrated at the thing, because I think we've said a number of times that ethical non-monogamy and the ethical bit is so fucking important here, comes with risk, not just like from an STD thing and a safety thing, but it's a relationship risk. And I think you've got to have your wits about you, and you've got to have a great relationship before you go in. You know, I've heard of some people coming in and it saved their marriage, yada, yada, great for them. But I think for the vast majority of people that come into this space, they need to have their shit together, or they need to get it together very quickly. Otherwise, it is going to be problematic for you, and it is going to cause things to get worse and worse and worse. So if you feel like if someone is pushing someone towards this as a hobby or whatever, and they don't want to do it, then it is absolutely not going to work out. And it could be used in that way as an abusive thing. But those cases, certainly from my experience, and it's important to caveat that, right? We really deal with mostly single women and couples. We've not really experienced masses of people being coerced and stuff, as far as we know. No. But then also we've not encountered a massive amount of people. You know, our little bubble of life is quite small. But certainly in our 10 years, I can only think of about 3 or 4 couples where I'm like, this is... And some of those you could very easily put down to nerves. And some of them have had things going on, but no one would have known about, you know, bubbling away within their relationship that they hadn't declared at any point until it came to the explosive kind of reactive part. And I think, you know, as much as you can be, you're the safe couple going into this, on the lookout for these things, you don't know what's going on under the surface. You don't know what's been spoken about. All you can do is just keep your wits about you. Most of the time, things are absolutely fine, and it's like a really great positive life experience. But sometimes things are going to go wrong, they're going to go sideways, and you just got to be mindful of how people are and keep your wits about you, because you need to look for those signs for someone that's not into something. And if someone is like physically recoiling from you, it's a pretty good indicator, right? I think. The other thing about the show, you know, that I didn't really, again, this is me because I'm very much about balance, is that it didn't talk about any of the positive aspects of the lifestyle. And I appreciate this as an expose about Fab swinging through the lens of someone that's had an abusive relationship that's gone on the site. But all of the people they interviewed, all of the comments, and they interviewed, I think, Rosie Kay, I want to say. Yeah. Caitlin, someone, but anyway, Anyway, they interviewed, come to one of our events, they interviewed her, but it felt like all of the stuff about the negative aspects of it were the bits that were pulled out. Now, I get they've got a story to tell, but it felt like such a damning response without seeing there was no real exploration as to why people do it. No. What are the great things? What are, like, all that community stuff? What about if you find the right people, how that can change your life and how that can be positive? Again, I get it. They want to tell the horrible story and they want to highlight this person's awful situation. But I do feel like you could equally argue that Fab has probably saved as many lives as destroyed. You know, the support and the community and all that sort of stuff has probably helped tons and tons of people. I get that. And I think I probably end up feeling quite protective over these unconventional relationships as they were cited in the podcast, unconventional relationships. Yes. Which almost paints it in a picture of already it's going to be something that's dysfunctional and something that might wreck your marriage and, you
just even deeming it unconventional tells you that, they had a negative kind of mindset about it anyway.
Yeah.
So I do end up feeling quite protective, I think, over the whole ethical non-monogamy piece, because obviously it can be great. And if you do it in the right way with the right people and a good relationship, and you can do it safely and have lots of, fun doing that. So damning everything swinging wise, just because of this experience that they're talking about, makes me feel a bit protective, I think, over what we have.
Who'd have thought that the people that have been doing like, a swinging podcast and been living that life for 10 years or whatever would have been protective over it. And I think that's the thing, I recognize that we are knee deep in this shit. And I recognize that we've been very fortunate for the most part. Our experiences have been, looking back, positive. Now, there's been lots of shit, as you'll have heard, over the course of however many hundreds of episodes. But I think for the most part, the relationships, the connections, the support, all of that great stuff, the amazing sexy times, outshine the two or three horrible situations that we found ourselves in. And that's why I think we're so incredibly defensive of it, because we're defensive of our own lives, of our own experiences, and of our friends. You can't help but want to put your arms around it a little bit and be like, well, it's nothing to do with the swinging bit. It could be anything. And I get that. I don't want to be so unrealistic as if to say that actually Fab had nothing to do with this. I think, that they are a bit of an enabler in this situation. But I think that enabler could have been anything. That could have been.
Yeah, I do think that could have been the same on any site.
Yeah, on any site.
Because I think it was the relationship that really was the problem mainly.
Yeah. And, it just so happens that the particular thing that the partner or ex-partner was seeking was her having sex with other men. It could have been easily that he wanted to beat her or he wanted her to do something else. And then whatever those things were, maybe he wanted to fatten her up and feed her, and so she became gigantic. Maybe that was a thing. And then it would have been, oh, isn't it awful how he's buying her, and how Sainsbury's or Aldi are enabling this because they're doing a thing on sugar. But it's difficult because the coercive, abusive relationship is the driver in this. And the woman's inability, through no fault of her own, to be able to say no or to be able to leave that situation. I think that's the core bit of it.
Yeah, and I think Fab became the conduit, really, for it all to be brought to life.
Yeah.
Really.
I agree. I think, it's a challenging one, because we look at this and it felt like a very depressing look at something that we've had so much joy out of. And so what I don't want to do is be like, let's rise up and destroy BBC Wales or whatever it was.
Not at all.
Not at all. I just think that sometimes that level of balance reporting helps, or that level, if you're going to do an investigation over 6 things, then I think you probably have a little bit of due diligence to explain why that lifestyle might be good
appealing
for appealing to some people. And I think given the fact that she interviewed like Rosie Kay and some other people, and what's her name from Townhouse, lovely lady Vicky, who we've had on the show before.
And had a tour around.
And we've had a tour around, and she had a tour, but it felt very much like it was about this woman feeling icky about the whole situation, this reporter feeling icky, rather than looking at it as a positive. And the people that she spoke to didn't feel like they represented that, or were enabled enough to be able to represent that, the good aspects of the thing.
She did have a lot of shock factors at various elements of it, didn't she? Especially with the club tour. Even though the club tour was clearly, pointing out very, very comprehensively all the good bits and the consent bits and all the signs everywhere in the club that specifically say no means no, etc. And even then she was, she said that in the interview. I can see that these signs are saying this. And, Vicky was extremely clear in her, her interview tour.
And Townhouse is a great club. I think there is a lot of there's quite a BDSM angle about the club by the nature of Vicky and what she does, I think. But I would suggest that if you're going to go down a tour of a club, you're probably going to see a lot of stuff in that particular one that you're going to go, oh, that is beyond my vanilla experience. And that became more of the conversation rather than what is the club about? It was like, oh, what's that horse thing there? Oh, it's a spanking bench.
Yeah.
What's this thing? And it became a little bit more sideshowy as a result of it, of the reporter's kind of non-understanding of what some of those things were, rather than it being about so why do you do this? What is the benefit? What do you get out of it? Are you in danger all the time? How do you navigate that stuff? Because it could have been a helpful exercise in what to do as well if you find yourself struggling in the same situation. But, it's easy for me to sit here and complain about it because it's not my narrative to tell,
No.
right?
But I would definitely suggest that people have a listen to it.
Go and have a listen. See what you think. Let us know.
It's really not too long, and it's an interesting slant on things. And I'm obviously very glad that Ruth is free of that relationship now and is in a good place and a safe place and is recovering. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what other people think.
Yeah, I agree. Let us know. Send us a message and we'll talk about it. I promise. Now, the other thing we did, so we went to the cinema. We actually, where it was cold, and we went to see The Invite, which stars Seth Rogen, Olivia Wilde, Penelope Cruz, and Edward Norton. And they're pretty much the only people in the film.
Yeah, that is pretty much it.
Now, Olivia Wilde directed the film.
She did.
She did. And it is a remake of a Spanish film.
It's the 5th remake, to my knowledge. It's been remade about 5 times under various iterations.
Based on a play, right?
Yeah, I believe.
Not a playwright, but a play,
isn't
right?
it based on a Spanish film, The People Upstairs?
Yes, it is based on The People Upstairs. Would you claim that I've seen?
I do claim that we've seen. I think we went on like a bit of a mission going back a couple of years to find, interesting films. And I'm fairly sure in our travels we came across it and probably watched it. But we watched a lot and maybe we can't remember it.
Do you want me to give a basic summary of the plot?
Oh, because my summary will take like 58 minutes.
Yeah, it will take precisely the length of the movie. So I'm going to do that.
Yes, please.
So,
you do the basic summary.
Just on IMDb, by the way, it is hovering at 7.9 out of 10,
good.
which is very good.
Very
so I'm going to spoil the film. So if you don't want to hear me spoil the film, don't listen to this bit and come back in, 10 minutes or something. Fast forward it. Or just listen to it, but go blah, 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 blah.
You can't really do a film review without giving a spoiler, right?
You can absolutely. Yeah. You can talk about the emotional response to the film rather than the specific plot details.
I can't talk about a film without revealing a spoiler.
Yes, but I want to explain why we went and saw this film in particular and sort of a little bit about how we saw it, right?
Okay.
You'll see what I mean in a minute. Anyway, so the whole idea of The Invite is there's a couple, Seth Rogen and the Olivia Wilde, whatever she's called, living in a flat, and they have become slightly annoyed but slightly infatuated with the couple living above them because they're having really, really loud sex. Now, as Seth Rogen sort of turns up home one day, he finds that his wife has basically invited them for dinner. Mm-hmm. And therein is a sort of comedy of tragedies, errors, whatever. That's the thing. And basically, as they get to know them and all this stuff comes up, it transpires that they're actually swingers.
Yeah.
Edward Norton and Penelope Cruz, power couple if ever there was one.
I know.
And then the invite is the fact that they invite Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde to have sex with them. And it's kind of how they deal with that, what happens, does it all work out, does it all go wrong? Now, what I will say, of course, because it is a film about basically the lifestyle, but about two couples sort of connecting and trying to get to know each other and going over like all these weird things that they've experienced. Obviously, there's lots more plot to it than that. But what I was pleased to say is that one, it uses a lot of really, really good language, like compersion.
Oh, it did. And it explained compersion.
It talked about pegging.
Yeah.
It gave really good scene stuff, like explanations or words that were relevant to the conversation. That was good. But also it's kind of the relationship, because it feels like old Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz, their relationship's pretty sorted. They're pretty good. They're communicating all the time.
Yeah.
But as far as we can tell, and they're pretty solid from where they are.
Uh-huh.
But Seth Rogen and old Olivia Wilde, they're having some issues. And they're like, oh, we could have some sexy times with those hot people. Now we know it's not going to go right because there's got to be drama. It's a fucking film. But what I keep trying to say, but I keep getting distracted, obviously normally because it's me, is that actually, whilst it doesn't go according to plan, it is not relationship breaking.
Right.
And
it is not.
It is not. And it feels like there was actually some relatively good communication out the back end of it, where they explore like what are the root problems that have been driving their relationship mad.
And how do we fix it?
And how do we fix it?
It felt, even though it got a bit bleak because things were going wrong, it also felt quite hopeful because, as you say, they were identifying there were some issues and it was clear they still loved each other.
And I think it was quite, for the most part, at least it starts off like it's all going to go
I know.
okay. Like it could actually pan out and be all right.
Yeah.
And obviously there's drama that happens throughout the course of it. But I thought it was a cracking little film that fantastically acted, brilliantly funny. But it was nice to see this used as a I mean, it's a bit of a plot device, but it wasn't just that. It felt like the film was more than the sum of its parts. And I didn't think that it took the piss out of the swinging part particularly. It took it quite seriously.
Yes, I get what you mean. It wasn't like a seedy sort of salacious, here we go again. Of course, it's all going to crumble because it's this.
Yeah.
Yeah. It actually portrayed it in a relatively positive way.
I thought so. I mean, I came away thinking, actually, I feel pretty well represented, as someone that's experienced some of this stuff. I came away thinking, actually, it's not necessarily the end of a relationship for someone, which is this inevitably is in these sorts of films. And it was well written, well directed. So it didn't feel like a cheap indie, like, oh, we are some swingers and we have made a film. Now let's go watch it. It wasn't played for extreme laughs. We've seen some films where the swingers have just been a joke.
Yeah.
And it felt more evolved than that.
Yeah, I would agree.
Which I really, really enjoyed.
And a very good use of music in that film as well.
Yeah, good soundtrack.
I mean, the way they used the music I thought was quite good. It kind of built up at all the right points just to add some frenzy to things.
Oh, it's mounting pressure and it starts mounting pressure pretty quickly.
It did, yeah.
and it's kind of that getting ready for people coming around and the running around and all that sort of
kind
stuff.
Of reminded me of Whiplash a little bit, the film Whiplash.
Well, I don't think that's probably the most extreme pressure you like. Outside of what, like Gravity? It reminded me of Gravity because there's a lot of pressure at the end of the film.
It had a good pace.
It
did have a good pace.
It did. I'm trying desperately not to pick it apart for plot reasons. I think it was just nice to be able to go and see a film and enjoy it and not feel as though the thing that we like was picked apart.
Yeah.
Particularly after having listened to that podcast. And I was like, fucking stupid fucking podcast. It was like important stuff, obviously, and some cool messaging. And I feel very, very sorry about Ruth and her journey. But then it was quite nice to go, oh, and here is a film that is actually treating this with at least a little bit of respect. And as a result, I kind of felt like it was a good stab at that stuff.
It was well handled.
Yeah, because I think,
as a subject matter.
Swinging in the media, it tends to be like a curiosity or sold for the sex factor or like, hey, come and watch the freak show.
Yeah.
And I don't think it did that. I think it handled it maturely. Obviously, it's funny because it's a comedy as well. And there are some extremely funny bits that I really enjoyed. So we went with our delightful lady friend.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she said that did crack me up about this is that she was going to also watch the audience react to what was going on the screen.
Well, I think we did go along with that in the back of our minds as well. Like, who goes to see this kind of film?
Who lives in a house like this?
Anyone who's read the sort of, you don't just,
synopsis.
Yeah, will know that there is a core theme for this film.
Yeah.
And yes, who goes to see it? And are they going as like a couple or like, is it mates? There was a Billy No Mate sat there on his own.
There was. But then if you saw the word swinger, film and Penelope Cruz, you'd be like,
you could forgive him for thinking this is going to be a great Tuesday night.
It's going to be a great wank fest.
And Penelope Cruz was hot.
She was hot. I mean, it's a strong looking cast.
Agreed.
All four of them. And I think it was interesting because we did watch some of the reactions.
Yeah, we did.
And it was, people were generally sort of quite
favourable.
Yeah, I don't, and snippets of conversation on the way out. No one walked out midway through, which was more than I can say for Supergirl.
No one yelled out, freaks.
No one chucked water at us.
No, it was, I agree. It wasn't like a packed out cinema at all, but equally there were more than enough people there to make me feel like a lot of people were interested in the subject matter or the film as it stands.
And the film had already been out like 2 days and something at that point. So, doing actual business. I hope it does really well. I thought it was a great little treat. And actually, I think it would be a good way to sort of watch with your friends and be like, that's what we do. What do you think of that? That's what we do. Could be disastrous. So they go, fucking hell, there's no way I'd ever do that. And you'd be like, oh shit, this is awkward.
I wonder how many people now look up the original or the last or the Spanish version that this is based on and watch that.
Probably not many.
Really?
It's probably just me.
No, I was intrigued as well. I'm sure we have watched it.
I think we've watched, I think you're thinking of a different film that was like a compendium of different things going on, which had a sort of...
We'll see, won't we? We'll find it and we'll watch it.
I've got it. Is it ready? I've got it ready because I'm ready to watch.
Fine.
But I do think that it is not a film that we've necessarily seen. But if it's been remade 5 times and it's based on a play, chances are we've seen an iteration. But it's not a massively complicated plot that you wouldn't find, couple turns up, they're the swingers upstairs and they go, hey, let's have sex. That's the basic plot, right?
Yeah.
So I think we've seen enough variants of that. In fact, we've lived enough variants. Not that we've got anyone living above or below us, which is probably a good idea anyway.
But yeah.
But I thought it was a great little film. I really enjoyed it. I found it quite hopeful and that it treated things well and with respect. I'd happily watch it again. I'd happily have it on disc so I can chuck it in when I fancy a watch.
When you fancy a watch?
A watch.
I wonder where you were going with that.
No. I kind of like those sort of relationship films, and I like having a sort of like High Fidelity, a little bit more comedy. Also, Forgetting Sarah Marshall, again, more comedy. But that sort of relationships represented in an interesting way. Yeah, I quite like that, and this feels like it's now joined the pantheon of Mr. H sort of relationship films. Yeah, maybe it's in there. I don't know. I'd have given it an 8 out of 10. I think I'd have been quite
strong film.
Strong choice. Enjoyed muchly. If you get the chance to go see it, great. If you're trying to break it to your parents that you're swingers, probably a film that you could, introduce.
It's mainstream enough that you could sit down and watch it with your mates or your parents or your family, whatever, and not be like, oh my goodness, what are you watching?
Although you might have the awkward, so do all the swingers look like Ed Norton and Penelope Cruz then? Probably not.
No.
That is probably not the truth of the matter.
They definitely, Seth Rogen and Olivia Wilde hit the jackpot,
I mean, to be fair.
That couple that turned up and went, hey, we're here for dinner. Also, do you want to have sex?
They're not bad. I mean, they're a power couple as well.
And they were good too.
They were good,
I thought there were lots of inside little, not jokes, but inside little bits that if you were in the lifestyle, you would probably nod and go, yeah. Yep.
Like I was saying, the descriptions, some of the language used, some of the black ring.
And the black ring. Yeah. There's quite a few little nods to, it was quite faithful, I thought, to the genre.
You reckon they had a consultant? Is that a role for films? Is this what I'm going to do now? This is going to be my new job. I am the swinger consultant.
They'll bring you in.
They'll bring me in just to go, yep, that's what happened. No, that doesn't.
Is swingery enough? In a good way.
Mm-hmm. What you need is more upside down pineapples, my good friend. Yes, and some pampas grass. More pampas grass. But Simon, we've exceeded the budget for pampas grass. No more of it, sir. More, I say. Anyway, moving onwards.
Yes.
So that was our kind of very brief, I say very brief, we managed to drag it out for 15 minutes. Who'd have known that we'd have done that? Kind of thought process on swinging in the media at the moment.
Yeah.
There's two ends of the scale, both offering something very different and very interesting. And, one leaving me feeling yay and one leaving me, let's go storm BBC Wales.
Well, no, I think they both had an important role to play.
Yeah, I agree. They both had important roles.
But let us know what you think. Watch or listen to both or one of them.
Or what is your favourite swinging media TV thing?
I do love hearing from people about what their favourite is.
Yeah.
Or recommendations.
Yeah, what film, Game of Keys, I love. I think that's great. Well, the first season is really good. And then
God de las Lavas.
Barbara Tequila, diminishing returns on that one. But I do think I've enjoyed watching that with lots of different people.
Definitely.
And I've really, it's got that kind of bouncy, fun, soap opera kind of thing, but with some sexy people in it. And that's sometimes all you need when it comes to a swinging show. It doesn't always have to be super deep. But we did watch, funnily enough, on a very similar note, we did watch Tiptoe, which was not swinging LGBTQ plus adjacent, right?
Oh, compelling viewing, I would say.
Very compelling viewing.
With lots and lots of trigger warnings there.
All of the trigger warnings.
All of the trigger warnings. But important viewing, I think.
Important
different
viewing
reasons.
Did not leave me happy.
No, bleak. Absolutely. We knew it was going to be a bleak watch.
Yes.
We did know that.
Yes, we knew
But
going in.
I also think it actually is important to watch these things because, you're looking at all of the different aspects of, lifestyle and LGBTQ, or, community stuff. There's going to be elements which are not pleasant, not very tolerable.
I think the challenge with stuff like Tiptoe is that the people that need to see it aren't the people that are going to see it.
No, you're right.
And I think that's the greatest tragedy of all of that piece of work is that it's a very, very well done, if a bit on the nose show with some great acting in it. But I just think that the people whose minds it would change about some of the LGBTQ plus stuff are not the sort of people who are going to sit down and watch it, and they've already made their minds up. And that's a real sad thing. But definitely go and check that one out.
Yeah,
Right.
definitely.
So what have we got next, wife? We're going to be, just getting you ready for going back to work,
Yes,
surviving heat waves.
I'm just kind of recovering. Heat is not helping, but I get that everyone's hot at the moment.
You're on heat?
So.
Oh, blimey.
No, I know everyone's hot, so.
Everyone is hot.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. If anyone's got a spare air conditioning unit, right.
Well, an extra one, so you can have two.
One.
You've got two
For
windows in the
all of them,
bedroom.
I know.
We're going to have two pipes going out.
Oh,
it's going to be great.
Warm. But yeah, we're not really up to a great deal, as you can imagine, because we're still coming out the other end of this biblically shit month.
We'll get there. I promise you. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Anyway, do your thing.
Well, thank you for hopping into our bed.